So welcome to episode 86, Major Arcana 4.
Empowering cards.
So join us as we discuss two cards that represent empowerment to us. For Kimberlyn, it is Strength, which I'm looking at as this idea of transformation, of merging, the impulsive animal self with through the power of the feminine.
And for me, Leilani, I'm bringing to the table card number 3, the Empress. And as I look at that card, I sense this nurturing and sustaining of creativity and life that comes from fostering, not from controlling or overpowering.
Stay tuned. Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
races,
and backgrounds.
With a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true, our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to episode 86, Major Arcana 4.
Empowering cards.
Just a heads up, our sound is going to be a little bit different right now because we're on Zoom today just for a number of different reasons. Instead of being in the same place with our super whoopie-doo microphone, we're on Zoom using our laptop mics, whatever they want to do.
And it's moments like this where we're so grateful to have that microphone.
Yes, we are. And the next time you hear us, we will probably be using that. So just recognize the sound's a little crappy today. Sorry about that, but we figured it's more important to actually get out a recording than to wait until all the conditions are perfect, because they never are. And this is so exciting for me because this was an episode that was requested by to do more tarot was requested by one of our patronistas. And how did we find that out?
We found that out because we did the live meet and greet with them, which was so fun.
It was so much fun. And in our last episode, I believe we recorded a little bit of their voice shout outs, so you can get a chance to hear their voices. But yeah, they gave us a lot of great feedback, but also some great suggestions for upcoming episodes, which we will share with everyone.
And you can find more information about that if you're interested over at our Patreon.
Yes, indeed you can. But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about what else has been going on in the world outside of our podcast.
What else has been going on in the world? Particularly in our world, we were in the area of totality for the April solar eclipse.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, first of all, it was so exciting that for a moment San Antonio was sexy, right? Everybody wanted to get here. A friend of mine was at a conference this past weekend, or the weekend before, and he didn't realize he was trying to get a flight. He was in Oklahoma or something, and he was trying to get a flight back to San Antonio, and he said there were no flights to be had, and he couldn't figure out it took him a while before it sunk in. Oh yeah, the people are coming here for the eclipse. Yeah.
Yeah, and boy did people come. So many people came that. I'm a teacher in a public school system, found that some of the public school systems in our area actually canceled school.
Oh, right, because they were just so well in some of the towns that got the largest amount of totality, like Kerrville and places like that. I think they said that their population was going to double or triple for that day, and I think they were just so afraid that people wouldn't be able to get around and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So, yeah. But I managed. We went out to a place called Leon Springs to a friend's house, and she actually wasn't there. It was so cool. But she left us the key. So we were friends came in from California, And we drove up there, and because I was so paranoid about traffic, we left town. We stopped and got breakfast tacos, of course, and coffee. And then we went, and we left San Antonio probably about 7:30, 7:45, and got there at 8 o'clock. There was absolutely no one on the road. But you don't know, right?
You don't know. We didn't know. And they had been saying all these warnings to us in San Antonio about like, don't be on the roads, and like people are going to stop on the road. And so it was, I get that about heading out early.
Right. And the beauty of it was that we got breakfast tacos. We also brought a number of snacks, because all of us were very food driven. And, but we brought journals and and several sets of tarot cards, and so it was really it reminded me of how I, experienced the fall eclipse, where it was just really about me doing me things, and things, not trying to listen to a lecture or be with a group of people who are oohing and ahhing, which can be fun, and don't get me wrong, but this was the way I like to celebrate it.
And being out in that area, was it relatively tree filled and like green?
Oh yeah, for sure. So what we did walk up to, so the woman, her place, I think they have about maybe 2 or 3 acres. And to get to her place, it's a long, narrow driveway, down to her house. So we walked up to the top because, my friends, they had experienced the 2017 eclipse, and they said that what was really fascinating for them was to be up high and watch, or be where you can really see the landscape, and watch as the darkness, like the line of darkness, just moves across the land. And so we were trying to do that, but it was a little too overcast here for us to see that, and we really had to go all the way up to the top, where a lot of the driveways kind of converge, and it was nice to walk up there, and then we went back down and sat down where we were. What about with you?
So I'm just struck by your experience and how different mine was from yours. So I was at work, so I scheduled to make my lunch break over Totality. So on my lunch break, I drove into the area, like we were right on the dividing line, like less than a mile. And so this is my first experience with a total eclipse. So from what I read, they were saying like 99.9 is different than 100. Like it's going to make a big difference. So we were like right on the dividing line, where my classroom is. So I took my lunch, I drove into the area of Totality. So I drove like 5 minutes and pulled off into a parking lot. So I'm like, no nature. And then a store parking lot. And I just parked my car, and I'm sitting there, and I'm watching it as it starts to get darker and darker. And, I had read about what would happen during the eclipse. Like my TikTok was phenomenal, and like a lot of educational stuff was coming at me about like, what does it look like? What to expect, what to look for. And we were, you mentioned it was pretty cloudy. It was pretty cloudy for me. So I actually couldn't really see the sun, and I couldn't actually see the eclipse action. But what I could was the consequences of the eclipse with darkening. Mm-hmm. And I knew it was going to be powerful. Like I knew, they were talking about like street lamps will come on, the birds will stop chirping. It'll look like it's nighttime. Like I had read all that. I had heard all that on my TikTok. Let me tell you, I was standing in the middle of this thrift store parking lot weeping, and I started shivering.
Wow.
I had this really primitive response as I'm watching the sky, and I cognitively know what's going on, but it was like my body was just like, what the fuck? So even though I couldn't see the the sun and the moon and like all of those, like I've seen really beautiful images and videos of what it looked like that day. I still feel like I had a great experience. I would have much rather been where there were trees. I would have much rather been in nature. I would have much rather been around my witches. But even so, thrift store parking lot, sobbing by myself.
Yeah, no, it was so it was where we were. The clouds were really moving a lot, so there'd be times where it was totally covered, and then the wind was blowing the clouds. So we got partial. We saw the actual moment it happened, and that was pretty cool. And of course, like the lights came on, the birds got quiet. I want to say I heard a couple of night birds, but I could be wrong about that. That could have just been my imagination. But yeah, it was, I mean, really powerful. And I was happy that I was with, two other witches. So, they, we kind of, we supported each other. It's not even so much that we were supporting each other. It was that we could allow ourselves to do what we wanted to do. And I thought that was pretty powerful. That, just the communal aspect of it, but then that we were sitting there watching something that doesn't happen that often,
Yeah. I think it is really cool that you were with other witches.
Yeah.
So it was dancing at the store parking lot.
What is the thrift store? Dun, 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 dun. I'm thinking Macklemore. You could do a little thrifting. Pick up a little something. Shall we dive into our discussion of our empowering cards?
Yeah, I was so excited that we had this suggestion at our Patreon meet and greet to do more of the major arcana. So this was really the impetus to get us to do another episode. And then I love that you suggested the theme of empowering.
Yeah, well, to truth in advertising, I was just kind of like letting my mind kind of swing around to what should we do, and I just remembered that my year card is strength. And so it just, I was thinking about that card, and I thought about the role that it could play. And then, so this is an empowerment card for me. What would be an empowerment card for you? So why don't we do a real quick reveal of what our cards are? I think I already shared mine, but would you care to share which one you chose for today?
Yeah, so I chose the Empress, and just as a little teaser, just like on social media when they're like, the third thing will shock you. The Empress. So this is a big stretch for me to come at it from an empowering perspective.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, I'll hear more. Why don't we dive into strength? Shall we?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So first off, I should note that depending on the deck you use, strength may be number 8, or it might be 11. So in some cases, the number 8 card is strength, and in some cases, in other decks, it'll be justice. And that changed. So I think for the traditionally it's justice. But Waite, so Rider Waite Smith deck, Waite AE Waite, switched the cards around when Pamela Coleman Smith was creating the deck. And just in terms of the numbers, apparently even cards symbolize balance, and odd cards are off balance or moving towards balance. Which I never. So now I need to go back and go through the major arcana, because I was like, why do they switch? And I just kind of did a real quick down and dirty search, and so justice is according to Waite, justice is better in the unbalanced position, because remember, justice is always. It's the scales, and people always think of it as scales are balanced. They always think Libras. I'm a Libra. Libras are balanced, and no. Libras spend most of their time moving towards balance, meaning they're unbalanced. And so he felt that strength is better in a balanced position. So he made that change. And then so most of the decks that are based on Rider Waite Coleman will have strength in the balanced position as 8. Whereas the rest of the world apparently comes from the French Marseille decks, style decks, and they have it the other way. And from my understanding, purists are always arguing for the traditional way, and they have like numerous reasons, none of which I know, and quite frankly, right now I don't care about, but why it should be the traditional way. So the purists wanted to have justice in that position, but there you have it. So that's why, if depending on your deck, you'll sometimes have strength is 8, and sometimes it'll be 11, which I think is pretty cool.
I do think that's really neat, and I do find that when I'm looking at a deck, I will check to, like, that's just one of the things I check is like, which one is it?
What do you have a preference for where that falls? Does one make you feel like okay, or not?
I don't think I have a preference, because I don't think I'm not really that invested in that part of it. I just find it interesting, and I think that it. I'm more looking at it from the hero's journey perspective arc. So with the major arcana, so that's really where I land.
Okay, that makes sense. And I had no idea. I just knew that change was there. And I guess if I had really cared, I would have figured that out before this episode. But I didn't. So there you go. So I didn't have a whole lot of invested in that. But I would love to hear, particularly from the Patronista, who suggested more tarot, or any of our listeners really, to hear if they have a preference. And I'd love to hear what the preference is, and I suspect for as many people as respond that there's going to be that many different reasons, right? But there we have it. So anyway, so moving to so some of the traditional meanings. Well, first let me describe it. So I don't have the Rider-Waite in front of me, but many of the Rider-Waite Coleman Smith, many of the decks have a woman, usually either holding the head or opening the mouth of a lion, or various aspects of that. The 2 decks that I have been discussing for the past, I guess, year now that we've been doing this, are the Syrian Starseed deck and the Thoth deck. And so in both of them, they have the lion and the woman and a feline beast. So I'm going to show you first the Thoth deck. I don't know can you see it? Oops, hang on. There we go. Can you see it? Yeah. So what we have here is this woman who is basically kind of, let me actually, I'm sorry. I was going to say give me a second. I was going to say the traditional meanings first. So the traditional meaning of it is that this woman has this dominion over the lion, that she has this power over the lion. And the lion is a symbol of courage and a symbol of power, but also a symbol of passion and desire. And those are feelings that could be really important for survival. But if they're not in control, if you're not careful, they can lead to destruction. They can lead to obsession, they can lead to addiction, to being kind of controlled by your body rather than vice versa. So it's, again, like most things, a double-edged sword. It has a positive aspect and a negative aspect, and what you're looking for is kind of a little bit of balance, right? And the fact that the woman is holding the head or the jaws of the lion is also a symbol that she is has a great deal of courage. And they usually create the faces as very passive or calm. And that's, again, the idea of using control and discipline to control, to harness the power of the lion, particularly when you're going through some troubles.
The Rider-Waite Coleman Smith it's exactly what you described with the woman, and she's kind of gently leaning over the lion with one hand under the jaw and one hand like on the top of the snout, and she's she's got her hands there, but it's not strained. It's very it's done with like ease and grace.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, and I remember reading somewhere, I was looking somewhere, and they said it's that grace. I mean, I forget the word they use, but grace works and uh, um, grace and that feminine, not sweetness, but that feminine femininity. I think they use is the term that they use, but the power that comes from the feminine is a way of taming it without it being adversarial. So you're a lion and I'm going to I'm going to have control over you. It's, oh, what a lion. What a beautiful lion, so I think that that's a major aspect that we see in the Rider-Waite-Smith that carries over to a lot of cards, and I love that.
So you mentioned that this is your year card.
Mm-hmm.
Strength is my life card, and which I think is really interesting for me. And one of the things that I come back to over and over again is this exact thing with the strength card, which is sometimes I go to strength is overpowering, strength is dominating, strength is blowtorching.
Yeah.
And this card really calls for me to remember that strength there's a quiet strength. There's a strength that is in the back of the room, a strength that's receptive, a strength that is not a spectacle, a strength that is subtle. Ooh. And as somebody who I can be pretty loud, I can take up a lot of space. I have a lot of ideas. I think a lot of thoughts. There's a reason why I'm a teacher. I have a captive audience all day, every day. So the strength card really calls for me to cultivate a different type of strength, a different type of leadership, a different presence, and one that I ultimately believe in is who I really want to be and how I really want to show up.
Right. I love that. Thank you for sharing, that how that card resonates for you. And I think that really leads into my Syrian Starseed strength card. Because here you can see, well, it's a tiger instead of a lion, but his he's fierce. It looks like he's roaring, and she is not. She is this kind of almost fiery being that is to the side of his head, and almost kind of circling, like the flame appears to be coming from her, and it's encircling his head, right? And I think that that's super powerful because what I read into this card is that it's kind of the power of that feminine that I'd mentioned before, but in this case, she embraces and soothes the animal self that's very impulsive. And so I love that. So it's she's not afraid. In fact, she's kind of dancing. She's dancing in the flames, the flames that are surrounding his head. She's not afraid. She's actually embracing the animal and embracing herself and kind of merging the two. So like the flame that comes from her body blends in with the colors of his fur or her fur, of the tiger's fur.
I love that she's naked. Like she's very vulnerable. Like it's this, for me, when I look at that, I instantly think about she's vulnerable. There's strength in that vulnerability.
Yes.
Of her showing up there with this ferocious animal. She's literally just showing up as she is.
Exactly. And she's ecstatic. Remember, we just had an episode on ecstasy, on ecstatic spirituality, and very much this merging of the gentle self, the loving, gentle self, and the forceful self is kind of embodied in that ecstatic experience. Like that merging creates the ecstasy, and it can only be done with the vulnerability, with the gentleness, and with the fierceness and the power. Yeah,
I feel it calling to me.
And what I find so for me, in a number of different traditions, that come out of the Rider-Waite Smith, we see a lot of control over the animal self. Power, not necessarily power over, but really controlling it. Whereas this is merging. This is like I'm hoping the best parts of each one are kind of becoming this new being, right? So two aspects of the greater whole. I think that's the part that really strikes me about this. And of course, these cards, they always take place in space. So, which gives it a more epic look anyway, right? Yeah.
Yeah, epic is right on.
Mm-hmm. So, and in contrast, so this is in the Syrian Starseed deck. In contrast, we have the Thoth deck, same colors, oranges, yellows, golds as in the Syrian, but we have here a woman who is also naked. She is riding the lion. I'll talk more about the lion in a second, and leaning back, and her hair is flowing behind her, and her arm is thrust up. And what I'm getting from this is energy, passion. I'm getting kind of joy of life, but also sexual, a sexual aspect to it. In as much as she's holding this chalice up, and there's like, sparks coming from it, lightning coming from it. The sky above it is turbulent, and it's basically, that's an orgasm. I mean, she's just. It's like, I want an orgiastic experience, dag nabbit, and I'm getting it. And that's what this card reads to me. Oh, and the name of the card is Lust. In the Thoth deck, it's called Lust. So it's, this desire for the orgiastic experience. And so like her body is taut, she's like, it's orgiastic experience. I don't need to describe what her muscles are doing, but yeah. So you have. Can you see? Oh, there it is. That's better for you. You can see that. Yeah.
I love that. I love that concept of lust. I think on the surface, I would say, why? What? Like why?
Mm-hmm.
But then if I think about the containment of that very primitive animalistic experience.
Yes.
Within the body, then it's contained within these bounds of who I am and that tameness and centeredness of the strength card.
Yeah, for sure, right? And so now she's riding a lion. I mean, she's kind of riding a lion. She has these reins up to, and I'll talk about the heads in a second. But she is. I don't know if she's guiding it or she's using it to keep herself on its back. And which also has a sexual aspect, right? The riding an animal, because it takes you very close to the genitalia, and so you have that going on as well. And just the colors, the striking lines, I think are so powerful. But it's a 7-headed lion, and let me get my notes. Oh, I think I have it here. Yeah, according to there we go. Let's see. Okay, this is Crowley. So according to Crowley, the different heads are the saint, the angel, the hero, the adulteress, the satyr, the poet, and the lion serpent. And so even as she's supposedly controlling it with the reins that go up to the heads, she is, it seems to me, she is so kind of focused on her own experience that what happens is they're literally given their heads. She's letting them having their heads, but because of, and this reminds me of the Syrian Starseed, that there's a little bit more kind of connection there. So the lion's power, the power of all of those different beings in the head, are giving her the energy to thrust towards this experience. So she's harnessing that power for her own experience, but she's not controlling it for her own experience. She's just drawing upon the power, and thereby she's changing the world. She's lighting the chalice that she's holding is changing the weather. It's changing the light, and this whole idea of changing animalistic nature through loving acceptance and as sexual transformation. because that's what is often, no, that's what it can be. Sexual transformation can be, harnessing the power of your body, of the animal nature of your body, for various reasons. The camp that I'm going to be going to next week is all about sex magic. So harnessing the power of sex magic to for whatever reason for however you're going to use that power.
Would you, I'm just curious, as I'm listening to you kind of process all the cards, would you, specifically the lust version of the card, mm-hmm. would you expound more upon this concept of like, she is experiencing it and allowing it through her, but it is not necessarily all of who she is or overpowering her, but it's like she's creating the space for it to be within her, but it is not of her?
Yeah, I think I know what you're getting at. So she's channeling. So when I say harnessing, when you harness a horse, you put something on its head so that you can direct it. Okay, a harness is not like a bit. With a bit, if they try to do something that you don't want them to do, you hurt them by pulling them back with a bit, right? But with a harness, it's just basically guiding, and they can say no. They can just shake their head and just do what they want to do, because a harness doesn't make them do anything. But harnessing that, you can give focus to the horse so that it can go in the direction that you want it to go. So I think of the way she's using the reins, very similar to kind of harnessing the horse, so that she's channeling the energy of this animal, of this animalistic being. And one of the things I put it somewhere, I can't remember where I put the note, but I wonder if another way of thinking about the beast is thinking about the id, like the Freudian id, that part of us that just wants what it wants when it wants. And that's super, super strong. And if we allowed it to just go off and do whatever it wants to do, we'd have no civilization probably. we'd be just fetching all over the place, right? And so, but when you channel that incredible power, that can result in a transformational experience that you can use in a number of different ways. You can use it, you can share it with the world. You can hold on to it for your own personal development. You could use it to send that energy to someone else who might be feeling ill. So I think that type of the strength card is more than just about strength. It's about the ability to embrace ways of transforming power from a less useful or less functional way into a way that can be such a incredible force for good, or force for whatever you want to use it for. Yeah, that's the Thoth deck. Do you mind? May I read something to you? So one of the things that they talk about is this power. This is Dionysus. So when you juxtapose reason and like the mind and the body, or reason and desire, and often that's considered Apollonian and Dionysian. That opposition. And so there is a hymn here that is associated with the serpent tail head. So there's a head that's a serpent. And this is Dionysian hymn. I am the snake that giveth knowledge and delight and bright glory, and stir the hearts of men with drunkenness. To worship me, take wine and strange drugs, whereof I will tell my prophet, and be drunk thereof. They will not harm ye at all. It is a lie, this folly against self. The exposure of innocence is a lie. Be strong, O man. Lust, enjoy all things of sense and rapture. Fear not that any god shall deny that for thee, for this. Whew. I may not necessarily agree with all of that, but isn't that power? I mean, when you think of that power, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think about so it mentioned drugs and alcohol in there, right? Mm-hmm. Like writing that like that lion, mm-hmm. And I'm thinking about, like you mentioned addiction earlier. Mm-hmm. been a numbing and distraction. Like, am I allowing the lion to ride me, or am I riding the lion?
That's exactly right. And if you're riding the lion, that lion can take you anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if the lion's riding you, it can also take you anywhere, but probably not places you necessarily can get back from safely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think about that a lot with like with things in my life, like the use of, for example, the use of technology. You know, like, am I using this technology, or is the technology using me?
Oh, yes.
You know, relationship. Am I like engaged in this relationship, or am I being used in this relationship? You know, so am I riding or being ridden? You know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. So I mean, the beauty of this is that it's a really powerful card. It's, you know, when you look at it, there's a great deal going on in the card. And for me, it also provokes a lot of thought about, like you said, how I'm using the power that's been given to me, the power, my power, my privilege, my abilities, you know, my finances. How am I using that? And being really, really mindful how every time I make a choice, I'm making a choice between, you know, between two dichotomies, and then where on the spectrum does my choice land?
Ooh, preach it.
I wish I no, and so you know, truth in advertising. In an ideal world, I'm thinking about that constantly. Half the time later, I say, "What was I thinking?" And I should have been thinking about this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the strength card. Like, life sometimes rides me, and I'm not riding life. So,
oh yeah,
that's all strength card to remember that, and to come back into awareness.
Exactly. So, shall we move on to the Empress?
Yes, I would love that.
Okay.
I picked the Empress. I picked the Empress. So I have a real relationship with this card. A lot of it is because it's like really feminine coded power, and I struggle with, as somebody who is, you know, I'm 41 years old. I'm not married. I don't have children. And I'm a witch. Like, a lot of my life does not align with cultural norms around femininity. And I find that a lot of the imagery around the Empress really like activates some parts of me that I feel resistance to, because of a lot of pressure that I felt in our culture. That being said, there's a lot of really great things about the Empress, but I just want to like put that out there, that like there's a lot about this card that I just want to be like, fuck off, like moving past it. Can we get to the High Priestess, please? Like, that's where I rock out, which is why we've already done that card. Yeah. And in the Empress, there is a lot of really powerful stuff. But I just wanted to give that caveat at the beginning of my talk.
Do you want to describe your card?
Yeah. So what I have is I read from the Rider-Waite-Coleman-Smith deck initially, and then when that got too colonial, sexist, racist, classist for me, I moved to the Modern Witch deck. So in the Rider-Waite-Coleman-Smith deck, it's the Empress card, which is card number 3, is a woman reclining in like a chair, like a very big chair, and she's holding a scepter, and she has a crown of 12 stars, and her dress is very flowy. Sometimes she's pregnant, sometimes she's not, and this large chair is normally in some sort of like field of some sort. You know, it's definitely not set in like a chamber. It's like in the natural world. And then to her side is normally some sort of like tablet, sometimes shaped like a heart. And then there's the symbol for Venus or woman, the circle with the plus sign coming down the bottom. So that's the Rider-Waite-Coleman-Smith. And then for my other deck, the Modern Witch deck, it's very similar. this woman is seated in a similar way. However, one of the things I really like about it is in the in the Modern Witch, the Empress, she actually has like her arm, her elbow like kind of propped up in a way which to me signifies like more, she's just more like coy, more aware, more assertive.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I sit like that, I'm very comfortable, and I also have like a sense of self and power. So she's still very feminine, but there's just like a different energy because she has her elbow propped up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that.
She also has like beautiful, like full fro of hair, which is just gorgeous. And she's wearing a crop top, which I really like.
And she's also Black.
Yes, yes, she's. And then her, just because the Modern Witch is like similar to but different, you can also see she is sitting in a natural environment, but there's these big outcrops of like crystals around her, which I think is kind of cool. Would you like to share yours?
Oh yeah, sure. So I only brought the Thoth deck. I could get the other if you want me to, but the Empress in the Thoth deck is actually so here she is. I don't know if you can see her. Yeah. So I want to, I'm looking at her bottom. I'm wondering, is she a mermaid? Or are those like?
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know, but she is. The Thoth imagery is very abstract, but heavy with symbolism. Heavy symbolism. So she's wearing a crown, but more kind of like a structured religion crown. It looks more like a bishop's mitre or something like that. And I want to say she's underwater because it looks like it looks like seaweed coming up there, and she's kind of a tanned skin because they're, like I said, they're very abstract, and a red top, and she's holding a is it a lotus? I think she's holding a lotus, but where her legs or dress or skirt should be, it's kind of curved and it's green. So I'm thinking I'm looking at a mermaid because every surrounding her is like this kind of wavy blue stuff that looks like water to me. We do have the moon, at the top left and down at the bottom right. I think, I'm not sure if that's how you're seeing it, but we have the waxing moon and the waning moon. And very, to me, it's a very watery picture. And then where you, on the Rider-Waite-Smith, where you have the tablet with the feminine symbol on it, she has it's a shield, and it looks like a phoenix rising, yeah. And then across from the phoenix is either a swan. I wouldn't say it's a pelican on its nest, because the pelican is a feminine symbol because it pierces its breast and nourishes the young with its blood.
What?
That's the mythology. I've never seen a pelican actually pierce its breast.
Okay.
So it's kind of like this very, very feminine, nurturing, but mythological nurturing, which is Thoth all backwards and forward, right? Like, instead of just having a woman, we have like a kind of mermaidy type of thing, right? So yeah, but I one of the things I love about it is how it, just looking at the card, every time I look at the card, I find more stuff. It's very, very watery, which usually the empresses tend to be painted as very, very earthy, right? But water, femininity, right? So even we're alluding to it, but just in a very, very different way, which is one of the reasons I love the Thoth deck.
So one of the things about the Empress is this concept of fertility, and like, so the crown of 12 stars. Oftentimes people can reference it as being like the 12 months about time and the power of the life cycle, the power of growth, the power of time passing, and growth and change happens during that time. And then she's also in this like very fertile field. Sometimes she's pregnant. And I was just curious your take on that fertility, because I have some strong feelings around with my own personal stuff, but I was just curious what your thoughts were about the fertility with the Empress.
Some decks paint her as Gaia, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
that idea of the Earth Mother, and you know, so this being that in pagan times was invoked with a number of different names, for the, you know, for continued fertility of their fields and their animals and their crops and and themselves, right? And so, you know, thinking about the beginning of the deck, we have, well, we have the Fool, but then after that we have the Magician and the Priestess, the Emperor and the Empress, and so we have like the mind and magic with the first couple, and then with the second couple it's the body, the physicality. And so I appreciate, and I draw upon that. I don't necessarily draw because I really don't want to be fertile. I mean, I definitely don't want to be fertile now, but even during my childbearing years, I didn't really want to be all that fertile. Because that's the recipe for disaster. But and so but I wouldn't draw upon it as like a physical fecundity. I thought of it more as, you know, the fertilization of imagination or creativity, or, you know, being fertile in maybe in writing and doing research, or being fertile and maybe getting those grades out to my students or whatever. So I would kind of I don't know if that's the question that you asked or you wanted answered, but that's how I kind of work with the Empress.
Yeah, I thank you for that. You're like spot on to what I was asking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think I find it reductive when people look at the Empress card and it's reduced. For me, I would call it reductive. It's reduced to like her fertility of childbearing, whereas I see it as more than that. It's fertility in my life, fertility in what I create. It's the concept of the creatrix and creating community, creating my life, my job, my relationships. How do I nurture things? How do I sustain those things? Because it's not just a creating and then I'm done. It's a creating and then a nurturing through that whole life, the 12 months, like the life process. And so it's like this power that comes from the fostering and the sustaining of life, not the controlling or ending or threatening. And I think, and what something that I see a lot is, and this kind of ties back into the strength card too, the power from overpowering, the power from dominating. And then this is just another example of that, as this power in a different way. This is a power through fostering life, a power through sustaining that life, nurturing that life, creating. And to me, so this is where I can jump on board with the Empress card when I think of it that way.
What I find fascinating is, even though we didn't plan it this way, both of our cards were about feminine power. You know, I mean, there was no, I mean, we didn't talk about it in advance, and but it's and it's about that, at least with the strength card. But I think it sounds like this is something you're grappling with the Empress card. It's about that, you know, the good use of power, and what are the results, what are the fruits, what are the, you know, what is, you know, what are the rewards of that, in terms of the Empress, or in terms of strength, you know. So wow, look at us.
We're so awesome.
We are so awesome. We didn't do this on purpose, but that's how it happened. Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I am with the Empress card. I like to think about that her chair or throne-ish type thing, which is, it's really not like, when I think of a throne, I think of something more, I don't know, something you would see in the court, but it is like she's sitting in this like chair, kind of reclining, but it's in that field, and it's like she's one with the field. She's embodied, you know, she's sitting in a chair, yes, but she's like in this field, and she's not in this like rigid throne. She's just kind of a part of it, not power over it, but a power within it.
You know what this reminds me of? That song that you brought to our group. I forget the name of the artist, and you'll remind me of it in a moment. But it's What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she wears the crown? And she's wearing a crown, and so I love that. And with both the strength and both the Rider-Waite Smith. So
that's what happens when a woman takes power, and it's by Alexandra Olsovsky. That song came across my TikTok, Holy Sacred TikTok, and then we kind of took part of it and sang it in our circle, like sang the chorus, and it's just a really powerful song. And I would also suggest, like, if people want to, you can go to YouTube or just Google it, and the video is really, really cool. It has a lot of really diverse women of all different ways of expressing being a woman, some feminine coded, some not feminine coded, different races, different ages. And I just think it's a really cool look at what happens when women take power.
What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she wears the crown?
We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!